Cancer is on the rise wherever you are and wherever you go. Did anything weird and interventionist happen in the last few years? Hello there, you awakening wonders. How glorious it is to be with you from Mar-a-Lago. That's what you can see behind you. Remember, if you get Rumble Premium, you get access to additional content from fantastic contributors and an ad-free experience. And remember, if you get mRNA jabs, what you might get is cancer. That's what people are openly discussing now because of free speech platforms like Rumble. I would ask people like Piers Morgan, who during the pandemic, and he's apologized for this, who said, get out there and get a vaccine, people should be made to get vaccines, are now saying that there is a whirlwind of cancer. Now, my friend, the doctor, cardiologist Asim Malhotra, has been talking about this for a long while. Let me know in the comments and chat if you'd like to see Asim Malhotra on the show, getting into depths about potential causal links between cancer and the mRNA jab. Certainly people are discussing vaccines in a way that I've never heard before, in part because of the ascent of Bobby Kennedy, in part because of the MAGA victory, in part because we have independent media, and because of the collapse of USAID or USAID or whatever you want to call it, probably USAID, right? People are now not getting propagandized as efficiently because that was part of a censorship complex, it turns out. Now let's have a look at Piers Morgan acknowledging an extraordinary whirlwind of cancer. That doesn't sound like a very nice weather condition.
He's very skeptical, as many people are, about the COVID vaccines, particularly the mRNA vaccines. I was with, for what it's worth, one of the top cancer experts in Britain for lunch a couple of days ago, who was utterly scathing about the long-term impact of the mRNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, and says that they're reaping a whirlwind in the world of cancer, for example, as a result of the vaccines. Not to say that I personally believe they saved many lives, but did we have enough time to examine the potential consequences? Almost certainly not.
One of the key moments in the early pandemic period was when Donald Trump was mocked and ridiculed for suggesting that injecting bleach into people might be a solution. And when Dave Chappelle memorably said, is he trying to guess a cure for COVID, which I thought was a pretty good joke at the time. Well, Dr. Deborah Birx, who was the White House coronavirus response coordinator under Trump, has now admitted to Morgan that COVID shots were pushed on the wrong people, which again is one of the things that at the time you just could not say that. You could not say, well, Joe Rogan did say, why are you making healthy young men get it? You should be telling people, get out there, exercise, stay healthy, get some sun on your boat race face. But actually what was people were saying was, get in your house and take this injection. Why is that? Could there be a profit motive? Could there be an attempt to legitimize centralizing control and authority by terrifying people? These are questions that you have to consider now. Let's have a look at what Dr. Deborah Birx told Morgan on that show.
He made it very clear to every mom out there that his children were immunized about childhood vaccines. Yeah. And what we've done wrong in public health is we didn't explain that COVID vaccines were nothing like the childhood vaccines, and that the childhood vaccines, like many of the diseases, you get it once, you don't get it again. And this is getting the children to have that disease without getting the deadly consequences. That is not what the COVID vaccine was designed to do. It wasn't designed to prevent against infection. And if you look at the vaccine hesitancy rates, they've doubled since COVID. So we have to start addressing these things. We can't just ignore them.
And Deborah, let me ask you, Deborah, I mean, given that you were the face of COVID from the Trump presidency at the time, do you share, this doctor who I was with, do you share the concerns about the longer term negative impact of some of the COVID vaccines?
The messenger RNA vaccine should have been rolled out for the people that were at risk for severe disease, because that's what the vaccine was developed for. But when we say that we're following the science and the data, we need to follow the science and the data. And the science and the data said people primarily over 65 or people with significant comorbidities were at risk for severe disease. Those are the individuals that should have been immunized first. And we should have put our science behind our immunization schedule and protected those most at risk. It went into young people in hospitals before it went into our elderly in nursing homes. That is not following the science and the data. So I am all for following the science and the data, but it shouldn't just be a statement. It should be a reality. And when we don't match what we do in public health to the science and the data, that is when we get into trouble. And that's when we start to fracture trust with the American people.
Too late now. The trust is broken. The mandate and consensus has moved in an entirely different direction. And it turns out with good reason. People have totally lost their trust in the institutions, both media and governmental, that were happy during the pandemic period to basically incarcerate and censor people that doubted the official narrative in the same way that people are publicly admitting now was reasonable and plausible. What's in these vaccines? What if it causes heart disease? What if it might cause cancer? What's the point in children taking them? It'll be a lot easier to trust these people if they weren't dishing out teddy bears to kids to participate in clinical trials. Yeah, you heard me right. The whole pharmaceutical establishment was acting like a great financially incentivized paedophile offering lollipops to children in order to participate in trials. And if you think that sounds ridiculous, well, here it is, baby. It's the news. Moderna fined, and by the way, it's a ridiculously small fine, for luring children into COVID vaccine trials with teddy bears. Let me know in the comments in chat if this is the kind of story that terrifies you, that makes you believe that Big Pharma had a stranglehold over former government administrations and bureaucracies that afforded them the opportunity to maximize profit from a dubious product. I mean, when you hear they're dishing out teddies to kids, does that make you think, well, these are the kind of people that we want massively empowered? And think about that revolving door. People that worked at the FDA in your country going on to work in Pfizer and vice versa. And in my country, people that work for the government going to work at Moderna. This is a bigger story than just a few teddies and a few kiddies, although you better believe that there are stories about teddies and kiddies floating around government circles. You better believe that. Moderna has been ordered to pay almost £44,000 after 12-year-old children were encouraged, incentivized, bribed to join COVID vaccine trials with the promise of teddy bears. Just reflect on that for a moment. Is this the world you want to live in? The US-based biotech firm was found by Britain's pharmaceutical watchdog to have discredited the industry. I would assume so. How can you further discredit that? I mean, there's the rumors of the cancer. There's the rumors of the myocarditis. Actually, the proof of the myocarditis. Let's get a proper inquiry going. Let's get some journalistic investigations going. If you're a credible documentary maker, here's a story for you. Get into that. Start looking at how power is operating if you want credibility. You got Keir Starmer wanting to wage war on Russia. They've already waged war on the British people, giving teddy bears to children. Fauci has been pardoned and Bobby Kennedy is in a position of power. RFK is now going to unearth what most of us already knew about the pandemic. This effort won't help the tens of millions who have never felt the same after getting the virus or the mRNA shots. We all know someone with a personal story about their COVID afflictions. Pfizer has been forced to release a detailed list of side effects associated with its COVID-19 shots. Sadly, some of these issues, like myocarditis and blood clots, are creeping up on people in a blink, causing debilitating issues. A less severe but common concern is long COVID syndrome, a condition that leaves people feeling brain fog, chronic fatigue and shortness of breath, lingering for months and in some cases years. The wellness company make it easy for you with their new long COVID syndrome support. You get 4 doctor-formulated nutraceuticals with 5 to 8 plants and minerals in each bottle, designed to address the root causes. Ultimate Spike Detox, Mind Lift, Elevated Energy and Healthy Heart. Dr. McCulloch recommends a durable recovery through holistic health. Explore targeted solutions like long COVID syndrome support. Right now, you can save $40 on the bundle and get an additional $23 off plus free shipping. Head to twc.health/brand and use the code BRAND. Take action today for a healthier tomorrow. This is a new America. It's time for a new you with long COVID support. Click the link. Take advantage of our discount. The US-based biotech firm was found by Britain's pharmaceutical watchdog to have discredited the industry. The complaint related to 4 adverts published by Bradford teaching hospitals that look to recruit children aged 12 and over for Moderna's updated mRNA vaccine. The adverts, which are aimed at children, rather than their parents. Yet another story where peculiar interests try to directly access your kids, bypassing parents, bypassing family, in order to get their hands and fingers, and in this case, teddy bears, into the hands of your kids. Somehow, the pharmaceutical industry is making claims that it knows better about your children than you do. The adverts, which are aimed at children rather than parents, added all our junior volunteers get a lovely certificate to be part of the research and a teddy bear. 2 separate articles published online also sought to directly recruit children. Critics warned that the next COVID trial was recruited at a time when children were deemed at low risk from COVID and were not being prioritised for jabs. Not only that, we're now beginning to think that there are extraordinary risks until significant research has been done on the explosion of cancer. I think we're going to have to take a real pause on our trust in both government agencies and the pharmaceutical industry more broadly. Okay, let's have a look. This is reporting from The Telegraph. Molly Kingsley, the founder of the campaign Us for Them, said, for any pharmaceutical company to effectively bribe children with the offer of a free teddy bear to take part in a trial of a product posing a degree of risk to children is sinister and deeply unsavoury behaviour. Sinister, deeply unsavoury. Corporate behaviour. Fascinating. Interesting. Look how the media in the UK behaves. Look at what they do. Look at where they put their focus and their attention. Who do they work for? What is their agenda? Moreover, given that by the time of this trial, it was well established that COVID posed only minimal clinical risk to healthy children, it's hard to see how these trials for otherwise healthy children were ever judged ethical in the first place. Let me know in the comments and chat. Were they ever ethical? And if there is a causal link demonstrated between those vaccines and the rise in cancer and heart disease, what should be the consequences for Moderna, Pfizer and the government agencies that facilitated this kind of conduct? This is but one small story of a matrix of stories, a web of stories cast across the globe that led to the rise of independent media reporting, because the mainstream media were busily getting on board shaming people who didn't take those vaccines. And independent voices that were critical of that suddenly found themselves subject to near continual attack, and sometimes more than attack, coordinated attacks and attempts to bring people down. Let me know what you think about that in the comments and chat. Under the Medicines for Human Use clinical trials regulations, it's prohibited for incentives or financial inducements to be given to children or their parents. But why let that get in the way? Pharmaceutical companies are also banned from directly advertising to children. Law after law broken. That's before you get into what's in those vaccines, their efficacy, what they achieved, whether they were worth it, what the whole endeavour actually achieved other than dread, terror, centralised control and profit. Let me know in the comments and chat if you think that that's a sufficient incentive for corporate globalist entities to wage a war on humanity. Extraordinary. Esther McVeigh, MP, former member of the all-party parliamentary group on COVID-19 and vaccine damage, said the posts were judged to be an attempt to directly persuade children to join their COVID-19 vaccine trial. That's extraordinary. I think it's fair to say this shocking behaviour sets a new low for the pharmaceutical industry, and that ain't easily achieved when you think of some of the out-of-court settlements of Johnson & Johnson, when you think of the entire opioid crisis across the nation of the United States of America. A new low is a low indeed. The latest ruling comes in a long line of cases which have found major pharmaceutical companies guilty of misleading the public about their COVID vaccine products. Isn't it extraordinary that something as significant as this, broadly speaking, goes beneath the radar? And during the entire pandemic period, this kind of reporting, this kind of conversation was verboten. What kind of power was being exercised there, and to what end? Moderna was found to have breached 4 clauses. And Moderna, by the way, have been given an enormous deal by the UK government to continue manufacturing vaccines, which to me just seems staggering. I think it was £10 million. We can look into that. But Moderna is still doing business with the British government even now. Look at all of the profiteers and pirates of the pandemic period. Who's been brought to justice? Who? Has there been an inquiry sufficient yet? Do you think, let me know in the comments and chat, that Bobby Kennedy should, in his new role as Secretary of Health, conduct a full inquiry into exactly what Anthony Fauci was doing, exactly what DARPA's involvement was in the initial Wuhan lab leak and clinical trials that were taking place over there. That in the UK, you want a proper in-depth inquiry into who had legislative and subterranean connections between the government and these organisations like Moderna and Pfizer. Who's going to conduct those inquiries? Who's going to conduct those trials? Who's going to tell you the truth when they were censoring true information live at the time? Moderna was found to have breached 4 clauses of the Association of the British Pharmaceutical Industry Code and practiced by Prescription Medicines Code of Practice Authority. That's like a regulatory body. So at least it's done its work there. The company was rebuked by regulators in October after offering children cash to test its new mRNA 1283 vaccine in the same NextCove trial. What an extraordinary organisation they're running over there at Moderna. They were ordered to pay £14,000 risible. Think of the profits they gleaned. They should hand back every penny of profit. Let me know in the comments and chat if you agree with that. Should Moderna and Pfizer be fined effectively and realistically for their involvement in this shocking scandal? Oh no, they've got indemnity, haven't they? Isn't that extraordinary? When many of these fines and vaccine injuries are compensated, you know, that also comes out of government pockets. That's part of the unique relationship between vaccine manufacturers and the government in your country and in mine. Isn't that absolutely staggering? The company was also reprimanded in September and August last year for using off-label data to promote its Spikevax vaccine at the European Congress of Clinical Microbiology and Infectious Diseases in April 2022. Ben Kingsley, the head of legal affairs for Us For Them, added, for Moderna executives to claim the images of a smiling schoolgirl holding a teddy bear and a trial certificate were not promotions directed at children is simply disingenuous. It's a downright lie. It's absolute deception. This is the 4th occasion in as many months that the industry regulator has upheld a string of the most serious possible regulatory findings against Moderna, and yet there has been no meaningful consequence for the company or its executives. Almost as if there's a relationship between big pharma and government agencies and government itself that's both financial and perhaps even more duplicitous than that. Let me know what you think in the comments and chat. The government must surely now ask itself whether Moderna is a suitable company to benefit from hundreds of millions of taxpayer funding for mRNA vaccine and development facilities. Is that sarcastic? Is that a joke or what? We have to sever our relationships with organisations like Moderna and Pfizer. How can it even be contemplated and considered? How can Keir Starmer be on the brink of escalating tensions between not only Russia and Ukraine, but also the UK, Europe and the United States when he can't even handle a domestic crisis like this one, where children are being offered teddy bears in exchange for participating in clinical trials that, if they took place effectively, might establish a causal link between cancer and vaccines? I mean, who are these people in the holy name of the Heavenly Father? This is someone from Moderna. A spokesperson said the tweets and articles in question, published in August 23, were created and disseminated by third-party organisations and were not approved by Moderna. We've found a bureaucratic way to arm's length this bullshit off into the arms of an agency, and that's exactly what we're going to try and do. These are the kind of things that should bring down governments. These are the kind of things that should mean you should never trust those leaders again. Never trust the mainstream media again. Defy, disobey, and refuse to pay your taxes. Start reneging on your mortgages. Give them something to think about. Start disobeying peacefully, as always, on the streets. To prevent similar occurrences, say Moderna, the same people that enacted this chaos, we've reinforced our processes, for oversight and communications with research sites and third parties. Moderna, here comes the bullshit, remains committed to maintaining the highest standards of transparency, quality and compliance in all its activities. Remains committed? Well, if that's what you were doing and it led to adverts using teddy bears to recruit children to participate in clinical trials for drugs that not only were not effective in the way they claim, but might even, get this, because the trials ain't taken place yet, cause cancer, then people need to go to jail. You can't grant indemnity to pharmaceutical companies that behave like pirates and gangsters. Can you? Yes, you can. Under globalist imperialism, if you dress it up as care and concern and terrify people that they're going to die and ban people from going to funerals or hospitals during the height of the pandemic, when it seems that government officials were quite happy to have their voice coach over or to have their Christmas parties, whoever you vote for, you're getting the government in the United Kingdom. Both sides support ongoing war. Both sides supported the pandemic. Both sides participated in these crimes and this crisis. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat? Wherever you're watching this, remember, get Rumble Premium and support us there. Use the code BRAND and get a discount to get additional content as well as an ad-free experience. Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.